evening. Good evening. Hello. All right. Just modulating where to hold this. Welcome. My name is Frank Locatori. I am the Executive Director for the Colfax Ave Business Improvement District, but I also live in City Park West. And I just want on behalf of all the awesome team that has been working on this for such a long time, I want to welcome you, but just give you a minute of background of why you're here right now. So for the last year and a half, so every neighborhood has a plan. Most of those plans are like 30 years old or approaching that, and they're not very useful. So when I happened to be the president of Uptown on the Hill, I noticed that the Uptown neighborhood had a plan from 1986. I thought that would be good to update, so that's how I kind of first understood that there was this whole process where you work with the city in order to create the vision of what you want in your neighborhood, and that was really exciting to me. But then it took a few years, but now here we are, and so for the last 18 months, a select group appointed by the two council members in the area, Wayne New and Albus Brooks, representing particular neighborhoods and backgrounds, have gotten together in order to learn what a neighborhood plan is and how to really be able to work on a plan really well. So we've gone through a lot over the last year and a half, and then recently Puma is leading the consultant team and are taking it down the home stretch. But what's really exciting is that we oftentimes talk about what is the kind of masterpiece. If we were able to paint the masterpiece that we wanted for our neighborhood, how would we paint it? And those are usually the discussions that you have at Vine Street Pub when you're really trashed or whatever. But this time you get to have those conversations in real life, in real time, with people that are actually going to then implement it. And so your input is really critical. And so I'm going to encourage you to do two things. One, you've got your own clear perspective of where you're at, and what is important to you because of who you are. So that's important to bring to this process. But then I'm going to challenge you in one other way too, is that there are, if you look around the room and you see who's sitting here, not everybody from the community is in this room right now, and not everybody with the same type of background or abilities that you have. So also think about, use a little bit of that veil of ignorance, and if you weren't who you are, and you didn't even know who you were, what kind of neighborhood you want to live in. There's getting a little bit out there or whatever, and I think that means it's a good time to turn it over to JJ to get down into the nitty-gritty of it.
Maybe get a show of hands of other steering committee.
Oh yeah, if you're on the steering committee for East Central, just raise your hand so you know, so people know. So we got Brad in the back. All right, so me and Brad are the only two. Okay, cool, good, so new opinions.
Thank you very much, Frank. So again, my name is JJ Folsom. I'm the project manager for the consultant team. Our firm is called Progressive Urban Management Associates. And we have a very large team of city staff as well as consulting staff. They're all around the room. Not going to introduce everybody for the sake of time, but you'll get a chance to meet each of them as you wander around the room. I noticed many of you were taking a look already at the exciting information that we have. So tonight, you're just going to have to listen to me for maybe, hopefully 20 minutes or so. I'm going to walk you through a little bit more detail on the process that Frank mentioned and the schedule, and then a brief overview of what we've heard to date through surveys, through online surveys. How many people have taken the online survey in this room? Anybody? Yeah, okay, great. Good show of hands. So several people have taken that online survey. We'll show some data from that. Then we'll give you a real quick overview of what each of these stations are doing. We're going to be talking about land use and urban design, economic development and housing, quality of life, which is landscape, parks, green infrastructure, and then mobility, which is all transportation, bicycles, but each team member is going to talk about those. Also important to note, this website here has all the information about this project. Within a week or so, we'll have an online version of this same meeting, so if you are unable you run out of steam in the next hour as you're walking through these boards, all of these will be on this website, and you'll be able to go in and provide input there as well. Or after, let's say you do get through all these boards, and you have another idea or other thoughts that you want to add, you'll be able to do that on this website. So Frank talked a little bit about this. What is a neighborhood planning initiative? So there are 78 neighborhoods in the city of Denver, and almost half of the neighborhoods, 42%, don't actually have a neighborhood plan. And then another third have an adopted plan that's 16 to 18 years old. So the city is in the process now of updating all the neighborhood plans, but in order to do that in a timely manner, in say a 10 to 15 year time frame, the city has grouped neighborhoods together and calling them this area plan. So that way, rather than taking 78 years to update all these plans, we can do it in about 10 to 15 years. And most neighborhood plans get updated about every 15 to 20 years. So what is the East Central Area Plan? So it consists of North Capitol Hill, Cheeseman Park, City Park West, City Park, and Congress Park. And over the next week, we'll be meeting individually with each of these neighborhoods. So if you live in one of the, I presume all of you live in one of these neighborhoods, we encourage you to come back. I'll go through those meetings in a minute. So how does the Neighborhood Planning Initiative relate to all these other plans that are going on? The city is embarking in many plans: the Blueprint Denver, the Comprehensive Plan, the Game Plan, which is parks and recreation, Denver Moves, which is transportation. All of these plans are citywide plans. So they set broad policies and big recommendations for the entire city. So this process, the area plans or neighborhood process, provides more detail than these plans. All of these citywide plans set the vision for what the whole city should be, and then the neighborhoods take a deeper dive and look into specific neighborhoods and specific recommendations for each of these neighborhoods. So the schedule, as I mentioned, I'm not going to go through all this. We are, as Frank mentioned, the steering committee's been at this for over a year. We are here right now in February doing all these neighborhood workshops for the entire month. Then in March and April, we'll be taking all of the input we've heard over the last year from online surveys and from meetings and from events, and consolidating all of that information into recommendations, draft recommendations, and we'll come back to the community, back to this neighborhood in May with draft ideas and draft recommendations. We'll be drafting the plan, and then we'll come back in June with a draft plan that will then get approved by the steering committee, and then it will go on to the city process. So it'll go to planning board, it'll go to city council, so there'll be many opportunities in addition to the May open house and the June open house. Once that plan goes through the city council process, there's still opportunity to provide input at those meetings. So specifically, on Thursday, we'll be at the Colorado Health Foundation at 17th and Pennsylvania, talking specifically about North Capitol Hill and City Park West. Then next week, on Tuesday night, we'll be talking specifically about Capitol Hill and Cheeseman Park. And then the following night, on Wednesday, the 13th, we'll be focusing on City Park and Congress Park. So if you live in any of these neighborhoods, even if you don't, if you're just interested, please come back to any one of these meetings and you'll get to hear us again. So I'm going to go through this briefly, what we've heard so far. So as I mentioned, the city has been working diligently over the last year, 16 events, over 1,200 participants in these events, over 4,800 comments, both from events as well as the online survey. All these dots on here represent things that people dislike, which is the red color, things that people like are the yellow color, and then the blue dots are ideas that people provided. So you can see there's a pretty big spackling of ideas and likes and dislikes, and we want you to help us at these stations with more of those ideas. So on the survey, I'm going to just go through 3 questions here, and there's many other survey answers and statistics on each of these boards that relate to those topics, but these were kind of big picture topics. So what do you love most about the East Central area? Some of the highest vote getters on that were walkability. It's a very walkable neighborhood for the most part. Parks and green spaces, very coveted. Local shops and restaurants, we hear that everywhere. That's what really makes the areas unique along Colfax. What are you most concerned about? Number one, any guesses? Traffic, speeding, parking, all in one category. Development and loss of character, we're seeing a lot of that development going on. And crime and personal safety. And lastly, what is your big idea? This is the question, if you just provide one big idea, what could help the East Central area? Improving public transit. That's on the table. Reinvigorating and beautifying Colfax, looking at streetscape improvements, more trees, more lighting. Improve pedestrian safety and walkability, particularly at intersections. We'll be talking a lot about that in the mobility station. A lot of people have asked, so how is the East Area Plan coordinating with the Bus Rapid Transit project? Has anybody in this room heard of the BRT project? Yeah, I assume most people. So this is a conceptual plan that's been worked on for years of looking at putting a bus rapid transit in Colfax. And our team, particularly our mobility team, we're working closely with the planners, the planning team that has worked on that project over the years. That has been conceptually designed, but they are in a process of later in the year to taking that into a more detailed design. So our process is a little ahead of that process, but we are conversing with the previous consulting team and looking at that as part of this project. But we're not addressing we're not necessarily addressing the bus rapid transit. We're working with that team. So managing growth, this is just a few slides to kind of set the stage for what we're talking about here with these neighborhood plans. We've seen a lot of growth in Denver. 100,000 people more live in Denver today than just 12 years ago. And we can expect about 100,000 more people in the next decade. So what do we do with that? We're not alone. The entire country is facing issues of growth, facing issues of affordable housing, facing issues of a lot of apartment buildings looking the same and not having a lot of design input. So that's something we're looking at with this plan. How do we manage that growth? These are just some projections. So in 2040, we're looking at up to 7,500 more additional housing units in the East area. So in these 6 neighborhoods and up to 12,300 jobs. And you can see the numbers of what's there today. So 34,000 people live in East Central, 34,000 households in East Central, and 54,000 jobs. So a lot of the decisions that we're going to make through this planning process are how do we address that growth and looking at different kinds of trade-offs for that growth. For instance, one trade-off is how do we increase density while maintaining character of our neighborhoods? And you'll hear a lot of ideas, and we want to hear your ideas over in the design section here with Cheney. So next, I'm going to ask team members that are leading the breakout stations to talk a little bit about what each station's doing. So Daniel from my firm is going to talk about the economy and housing station.
Good evening, my name is Daniel. I'm a member of the team that'll be working in the back left corner to you guys, the economy and housing station. One of the big themes our team has been observing so far is the fact that healthcare is one of the major economic strengths of the East Central area. There's 4 major hospitals in the area. About 12,000 jobs are in that sector. And those hospitals receive tens of thousands of people each year. So we want to explore how healthcare and wellness can be a foundation for economic growth moving forward. A couple other things we're talking about. One is related to food and how we can create a complete food environment in the East Central neighborhoods. The third one is about retail. Something we've heard in our surveys to date is that residents in these areas love the variety of small local businesses, so we want to figure out ways to keep that and enhance that. And then last but not least, a topic citywide is housing affordability. So we have a board with some background information on what that means, and then also a voting exercise for you guys to help us hone in on certain strategies to help address that issue. Look forward to talking to you guys more.
Thanks, Daniel. And the times we put on the bottom of each of these, we weren't sure how many people were going to show up here, but we've kind of given some recommendations based on how much time you're going to have if you're going to stay till 8 o'clock. So generally 15 to 20 minutes at that station, but you can spend as much time as you want at any station. We're not going to say, okay, time to move on to the next station. If you are only interested in economics or you're only interested in mobility, you can spend all their time. With that said, we encourage you to visit every station because there's very interesting information and we want your feedback on all of this. Next is the Mobility and Transportation Station. Greg.
Hi there, I'm Greg Edelberg with HDR Engineering. With OMB Consulting, we're leading up the mobility part for consulting team. We have 4 boards over here that we'd like everyone to come take a look at. We have mobility hubs, multimodal connections, speed and safety, and then improving park and parkway access. We'd love for you to come by, talk to us. We also have sticky notes. If you'd like to jot anything down, any ideas, we have aerials provided as well. All the kind of recommendations, everything we have up there today, analysis is based on all the feedback we've heard today from neighbors, residents, stakeholders. We also have a prioritization exercise here. We really want to hear from everyone today. What do you want to prioritize for mobility in terms of biking, pedestrian connections, and that's it. So please come by and talk to us. I'm sure some people have some transportation-related things they'd love to talk about. So, yeah.
A quick question, right? It's a great question. Actually, East Central is the leader in not driving alone, so kudos to this neighborhood. You're absolutely right. The numbers citywide are in the 70% area. My guess is because some of those things I talked about earlier, the walkability, the density, the proximity to downtown, proximity to transit, less people are actually driving in this area. These are from the survey results that I talked about earlier. Okay, so next is land use and design. Jane.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. So this station over here is land use and urban design, and what we're going to be talking about there is, with all of this growth expected, how do we direct that growth into in and disperse throughout the neighborhood? So on the table we have 2 maps. I want to talk to you about where key opportunity sites to house some of these additional households and jobs. And also land use. Do you like the current land use mix of your neighborhood? Would you like to see more of something? So tell us that there. And then on the boards, we have the general vision statement, which is also throughout each station, so you can comment on that. And then tonight we're talking specifically about Colfax. And as growth occurs on Colfax, we have the existing allowable building heights. Do you think that is appropriate, what is zoned right now, or should it be higher, lower in some areas? Tell us that. We know that the Colfax buildings, a lot of these 1, 2, 3-story buildings along Colfax, they really contribute to the character of Colfax, and so we are having a discussion about how we can encourage saving some of those buildings. So there's an exercise on that. And then what are your priorities for new development along Colfax? So 3 things tonight. But I encourage you to come back to the neighborhood workshops that JJ mentioned, or go online, because we are also having a large discussion about neighborhood character and specifically design and architecture. We will be getting into those details at the neighborhood meetings, or if you go online, or if you just really want to talk about design and character of architecture, you can come bring your comments to me and I will make sure I record them tonight.
Thanks, JP. And the last station is the quality of life infrastructure. What is quality of life infrastructure? Beth's going to tell you a little bit about what that is and what her station is. Then I'll wrap it up and I'll tell you what's next.
Okay, so we're right here in the corner and we're called Quality of Life. And who doesn't want quality of life? So please stop in. Really our focus over here is about looking at the neighborhoods and the community and the amount of paved surface, whether we need additional park space or green space. Do we need to regreen some of our right-of-ways? If so, can we create networks? Can we improve our water quality? And how do we manage our stormwater runoff? Are there ways we can work within the community to improve the overall quality of life of our residents through regreening, parks, recreation, health, and active living? That's essentially what that topic is there. So we have a number of exercises and we have some information on creating a network that might link our parks and things like that. So come by and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. So when you, this is the last slide, you don't have to hear from me anymore. When you walked in, you should have grabbed this sheet that has all these blue icons in here. You'll see on the right-hand corner of all the boards here, now you know where all these stations are. So these are a sampling of the questions they'll be asking you at these stations, so you can glance through these right now. If you didn't grab one, please do. On the back of this sheet, we encourage you to fill out a short questionnaire about the format of this workshop. We're doing this many, many times, and we would love to get the feedback on what you think of this format, and we can make changes along the way if we need to based on your feedback. Also, if you have comments that you don't want to verbalize with anybody, that you just want to write something down, you can do that on this sheet and drop it in the box up front. As we've mentioned several times, you can also do that online. There's also hard copies of the meeting schedules, so for the next 3 neighborhood meetings that are coming up. So please do grab one of those. As Cheney mentioned, and I've mentioned several times now, we really encourage you to go to your neighborhood-specific meeting as well if you're able to. Yeah, I'll just take one quick question.
All of the different breakout stations will be at each of the small community meetings?
Yes, so the neighborhood, very good question, just to confirm what the format is for these neighborhood meetings. It'll be a very similar format. Some of the boards will be the same, but there will be detailed, every station will have some different boards that are specific to the neighborhoods that we're talking to, particularly the land use and urban design. They'll take a deep dive into the design of the neighborhoods. So with that, we're going to open it up. Like I said, we have no specific time. We're leaving you just about an hour and a half to get through all these stations. So based on the group size, there should be more than enough time for people to go through the stations. I think kind of just self-regulate. If there's 25 people over here, maybe go work at another station, but we encourage you to try to hit all the stations and go to what interests you the most. So thank you very much for coming. I know there are many other choices of things to do on an evening after work, and we really appreciate you coming out here tonight. Thank you.